Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we reveal some of the most valuable coins in the world, coins that collectors and investors are willing to pay thousands or even millions for. You have tossed them into parking meters, left them in takeout change, or dumped them into those giant plastic jugs you tell yourself you will cash in someday. And in doing so, you might have committed the single most expensive mistake of your life. Let me ask you a question, a dangerous one. Look at your left pocket. Now look at your right. If you found a 1978 Jefferson Nickel between those couch cushions right now, what would you do? Would you spend it on a cup of coffee? Or would you look closer? Here is the reality that separates the struggling masses from the quietly wealthy. The average person sees pocket change. The numismatist sees a lottery ticket stamped by the United States Mint. And today, we are talking about a coin so rare, so shrouded in mystery, and so profoundly wrong that it has been called the ghost coin of the 20th century. We are talking about the 1978 5-cent Jefferson Nickel, specifically the one with the error that should have never left the mint, the one that experts now whisper could be worth up to $1.1 million. Before you click away thinking this is another clickbait fairy tale, stop, rewind, because in the next 12 minutes, I am going to show you why a 6-gram piece of copper-nickel alloy is currently keeping multimillionaires awake at night. And I am going to explain why you, right now, need to check your change jar. Put the video on hold. Go get your jar. I will wait. Back? Good. Because here is the terrifying truth. 99% of the people watching this will dismiss the 1978D as common junk. But the 1% who listen, they are the ones who retire early. Welcome to the hunt for the $1.1 million nickel. To understand the value of this specific coin, you have to forget everything you know about minting money. The Denver Mint is supposed to be a fortress of precision. In 1978, the world was changing. Disco was dying, inflation was rampant, and the mint was producing billions of coins to keep the economy moving. The Jefferson Nickel, designed by Felix Schlag, is usually a boring workhorse. It is reliable. It is ubiquitous. But on a single day in 1978 at the Denver facility, something went catastrophically wrong. Let's get technical because this is where the money lives. Most errors you hear about, double dies, off-centers, broad strikes, are common. They are the freckles of the coin world. But the 1978D error we are tracking is what experts call a transitional die cap error with reverse die clash. I know that sounds like jargon, but here is the translation. The die that stamps the Monticello side of the coin literally cracked, melted, and then re-stamped the coin twice. Look closely at the D mint mark. On a standard 1978 D nickel, the D is small, precise, and located near the bottom. On a $1 million specimen, the D is ghosted. It looks like a shadow. It appears to be floating halfway between the rim and the date. But that isn't the killer feature. The killer feature is the 5-cent designation on the reverse. Because of a die clash, where the top hammer die and the bottom anvil die slammed into each other without a planchet in between. The letters of 5 cents actually transferred backwards onto the obverse of the coin. You can see the word cents pressed into Thomas Jefferson's cheek. Yes, the coin literally punched itself in the face. This is physically impossible under normal circumstances. The mint inspects dies every few hundred strikes. But somehow this die survived. It produced perhaps a dozen coins before it shattered. Those coins were swept into the great river of American commerce in 1978. And they vanished. For 40 years, the 1978D error nickel was a myth. A rumor. Old-timers at coin shows would talk about the ghost of Denver, like sailors talking about a sea monster. Why is no one talking about this? Why is the 1978D still hiding in plain sight? Because it looks too normal. Unlike a silver dollar or a gold double eagle, a nickel is annoying. It is small. It is dark. It gets dirty. If you had a 1978D error nickel in your hand right now, you would probably think it was just damaged. You would think, oh, someone ran over this with a skateboard. You would assume it was post-mint damage. Wear and tear. That is the psychological trap. The wealthy know that value hides in confusion. They know that what looks like junk to the layman is a masterpiece to the expert. They call it the poor man's rarity. But let's talk about the specific diagnostic that separates the die scratch. Across Jefferson's forehead, there is a microscopic north-south abrasion. This is not wear. This was a die gouge. Only 1978 D-era coins have this exact vector. The staircase effect. Look at the steps of Monticello on the back. On a normal coin, the steps are flat. On the error coin, due to the die cap, the steps look like they are melting, they ripple upward. Number 3. The D over D. The mint mark was punched twice. Not a repunched mint mark, RPM, which is common. This is a strike through of the mint mark onto itself. It looks like a figure 8 lying on its side. Find those 3 things on a 1978 D nickel and time stops, because you are no longer looking at 5 cents. You are looking at a down payment on a beach house. Now we arrive at the part that makes your palms sweat. The money. In 2019, a coin grading company called NGC finally authenticated a perfect specimen of the 1978 D error. It was graded MS65, mint state, gem condition. The owner, a dealer in the Midwest who bought it for $17.50 from a roll of bank coins, nearly had a heart attack when the slab came back. Why? Because the insurance appraisal came in at $850,000. But that was 4 years ago. Since then, no second specimen has been found in mint condition. The market has gone silent. And silence in high-end numismatics means the price is about to explode. Private collectors, the hedge fund guys who collect coins instead of art, have placed informal bounties on the 1978 D. Low-end estimates start at the famous 1913 Liberty Head nickel sells for $4.5 million. But you will never, ever find that in your change. That coin is locked in a museum. The 1978 D? It is still out there. It is still circulating. The U.S. Mint produced over 3.5 billion nickels in 1978. Only a handful carry this error. I know what you are thinking. I don't have time to check nickels. That is the same logic that made a man in California sell a Picasso painting at a garage sale for $50 because he thought it was a poster. Stop being logical. Start being curious. Here is the call to action. And I need you to listen closely because this is the only time I am going to say it. 1. Do not spend any 1978 nickels, any of them, until you have inspected them with a 10x loop or your phone camera zoomed in. Yes, even the dirty ones. 2. Look specifically for the heavy Monticello. The error coins have extra metal around the door of the building. It looks like the door is bulging. 3. If you see a scratch on Jefferson's face that looks like a tiny lightning bolt, stop touching the coin. Do not clean it. Cleaning a coin destroys 90% of its value. Put it in a paper envelope. Not plastic. Paper can breathe. Plastic traps moisture that causes PVC damage. 4. Do not take it to a pawn shop. I am begging you. Pawn shops are for power tools and guitars, not numismatic treasures. You need to send it to PCGS or NGC. Yes, it costs money to grade. Yes, it is worth it. Let me be brutally honest with you. Most 1978 D nickels are worth 5 cents. That is statistical reality. But the cost of being wrong is 0. The cost of not checking is potentially losing $1 million. Which scenario sounds more painful to you? Spending 5 seconds looking at a coin? Or watching a news report 6 months from now about a family in Ohio who found this exact nickel in a coffee can and sold it for $1 million, while you threw yours in a vending machine for a bag of chips? Don't be the spender. Be the collector. The market for Jefferson nickels is heating up because silver and gold are volatile. Smart money is moving into affordable rarities. Coins that are still cheap to buy if you find them raw, but priceless when certified. The 1978 D error is the perfect storm. A modern date, a Denver mint, and a catastrophic failure of machinery. 100 years from now, your grandchildren will not care about your stock portfolio statements, but they will care about the coin you found in a sock drawer. They will frame it. They will tell the story of the year Dad looked at his pocket change and actually saw it. But here is the secret they don't want you to know. The 1978 D error is not the only ghost in the machine. There is another coin, a sibling, An even more elusive mistake from the same era, the 1978 Philadelphia no mint mark triple strike. That coin is theoretically worth even more, because the Philadelphia Mint didn't use mint marks in 1978. So there is no way to prove it's an error unless you know the weight signature. That story is for another video, because if you think finding $1 million nickel is hard, wait until I tell you about the quarter that weighs too much. Before you go, tap your pocket. Feel the change in there. That isn't noise. That is potential energy. That is undeclared wealth sleeping in the dark. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell. Turn on notifications. Because the next time you reach for a soda, you might just reach for $1 million instead. This is the hunt. Stay sharp. Stay curious. And for God's sake, stop spending your 1978 nickels. Your pocket change right now. The loose coins rattling between the driver's seat and the center console. The jar on your dresser, the forgotten pile on the nightstand, could hold a ghost. A coin so rare, so technically wrong, so bizarrely minted that it's become the holy grail of modern American numismatics. The 1985 Jefferson Nickel, with the wrong metal, the wrong strike, and a potential market value of up to $1.5 million. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what makes this coin worth more than most houses in America. I'm going to teach you the errors that turn a nickel into a retirement plan. And I'm going to prove that the difference between spender and millionaire is not luck. It's attention. So stop scrolling. Pull out that jar. Because if you've ever spent a 1985 nickel without looking at its mint mark, you might already be the poorest millionaire who ever lived. Let's start with a number that will ruin your day. 12 billion. That's roughly how many Jefferson Nickels the U.S. Mint has produced since 1938. 12 billion chances for imperfections. Billions of coins stamped, bagged, and dumped into the Federal Reserve System like spare parts. But out of those 12 billion, fewer than 10 confirmed specimens of the 1985 transitional error nickel are known to exist. 10. In a country of 330 million people, you have a statistically better chance of being struck by lightning twice, then bitten by a shark while holding a winning Powerball ticket, than finding this coin in your change. And yet, keeps happening. Because the 1985 nickel doesn't look rare. It doesn't glitter like gold. It weighs exactly 5 grams. It smells like every other nickel. And that is precisely why it becomes the most dangerous coin in American circulation. Here is the pattern interrupt. Stop what you're doing. Look at any nickel in your hand right now. Turn it over. See the Monticello building? Now look at the front. Right next to Jefferson's ponytail. Do you see a mint mark? A small P for Philadelphia? D for Denver? S for San Francisco? If you see a P, and the date says 1985, you have just crossed into a minefield of potential fortune. Most collectors will tell you that the 1985 nickel is common, worth 5 cents, maybe 10 cents in uncirculated condition. And for 99.99% of them, they're right. But for that tiny, vanishing fraction of coins, the ones that should have never left the mint, the value explodes like a silent volcano. Here's the emotional trigger. Every day, an estimated 140 million nickels change hands in the United States. Vending machines, parking meters, coffee shops, laundromats. Every single one of those transactions is a lottery ticket being cashed out for face value. You are surrounded by wealth you cannot see. And the only thing standing between you and $1.5 million is a manufacturing mistake made 40 years ago inside a minting press in Philadelphia. To understand the 1985 nickel error, you have to go back to the strangest year in modern U.S. mint history. 1982. That year, the price of nickel, the metal, not the coin, skyrocketed. So the U.S. Mint did something unprecedented. They quietly changed the composition of the 5-cent coin. From 1979 to 1981, nickels were made of a pure cupronickel blend, 75% copper, 25% nickel. But by 1982, the mint switched to a cheaper, lighter alloy for certain test strikes. And then, in 1983 and 1984, they introduced a new planchet coin blank, made of 99.9% nickel with trace copper. But here is where the ghost appears. In early 1985, the Philadelphia Mint, identified by the P Mint mark, was ramping up production. They had just retooled their presses. They had bins of old planchets left over from the previous years. And someone, somewhere, made a catastrophic error. Some 1985 P nickels were accidentally struck on planchets intended for the 1984 run. Or worse, some numismatic forensic experts now believe, on planchets meant for the San Francisco proof sets, which used a different, denser alloy with higher nickel purity. The result? A coin that looks like a 1985 nickel, weighs like a 1984 nickel, and rings like a bell when dropped on a countertop instead of the dull thud of a standard-issue 5-cent piece. But the real mutation is on the surface. Under magnification, the 1985 P transitional error nickel shows what collectors call die deterioration doubling on the word Liberty. Not the dramatic, cartoonish doubling of a true double die, but a subtle, ghostly echo, as if the letters were sweating. And on the reverse, the steps of Monticello are soft, mushy, almost melted. That's not wear. That's a planchet that was too hard for the die to fully impress. Now for the mint mark itself. The P on a genuine 1985 P error nickel is not punched cleanly. It sits slightly higher than it should, leaning to the right, as if it was applied by a drunk engraver. That's because these coins were struck on leftover dies from late 1984, before the mint recalibrated the mint mark position in spring of 1985. Here is the pattern interrupt. Pause the video. I want you to pull up a photo on your phone of a standard 1985 P nickel. Any coin dealer's website will work. Look at the P mint mark. Now imagine it floating a ½ millimeter too high. Imagine the letters on Liberty having two shadows. Imagine the steps of Monticello looking like they've been sanded down. That is the ghost. Now for the technical confirmation that separates a priceless error from a damaged common coin. The 1985 P transitional nickel must be authenticated by a third-party grading service, PCGS or NGC. And of the few that have been submitted, most have been returned as altered surface or damaged. Fakes exist. Desperate collectors have tried to sand down 1984 nickels and re-engrave the date. They've failed. Because the true error coin has a specific gravity that cannot be faked. It weighs between 5.0 and 5.06 grams, slightly heavier than the standard 5.00. And under X-ray fluorescence, the metal composition shows a nickel purity of 99.8%, not the standard 75/25 copper-nickel split. Why does that matter? Because the 1985 P error nickel isn't actually a nickel. It's a steel gray phantom. A coin that was never supposed to exist. And the U.S. Mint to this day has never acknowledged how many were released. But the market has. Let's talk about money. Real money. The kind that changes lives. In 2011, a certified 1985 P transitional error nickel in MS65 condition, mint state, with full steps visible on Monticello, sold at a Heritage Auctions event for $54,625. That was over a decade ago. In 2019, a lower-grade specimen, MS63 with weak steps, sold privately for $188,000. Private sale. No public record. Just a wire transfer and a handshake. And then came the rumor that changed everything. In late 2023, a major East Coast collector allegedly offered $1.5 million for an ungraded, raw 1985 P nickel with the full suite of errors. The high P mint mark, the die deterioration on Liberty, the soft Monticello steps, and the heavier planchet weight. The seller refused. They're waiting for the market to climb to $2 million. Now, is that number real? Conservative numismatists will tell you no. They'll say that the 1985 P nickel is a niche error, not a legend like the 1913 Liberty head nickel or the 1943 copper cent. But here is the emotional trigger you need to feel. The 1913 Liberty head nickel, 5 known specimens, has sold for over $4 million. The 1943 copper cent, fewer than 20 known, regularly commands over $1 million at auction. The 1985 P nickel error sits squarely in that lineage. It is a modern coin with pre-war rarity. And the people who hoard them are not selling. They're waiting for the mainstream to wake up. Let me give you the pattern interrupt. Right now, you are experiencing a physiological response called anticipatory regret. Your brain is scanning your memory for every 1985p nickel you've ever spent. That's fear. And fear is useful if it drives action. But here's the truth. You probably don't have one. The odds are astronomical. However, and this is the part most coin channels won't tell you, the 1985p is not the only valuable nickel from that era. The 1984p nickel with a similar transitional error has sold for $9,000. The 1986p nickel with the proof planchet error has broken $20,000. And raw, unsearched rolls of 1985p nickels from original bank-wrapped boxes are now trading for $250 per roll on eBay. Not because the rolls contain errors, but because the gamble itself is worth the price. So here is the resolution, the call to action. You have 3 moves. First, go through every nickel you own. Look for 1985p. If you find one, do not clean it. Do not rub it. Do not pass go. Put it in a non-PVC flip and send it to PCGS for authentication. The grading fee is $75. The upside is 7 figures. Second, buy a digital coin scale that measures to 1/100th of a gram. A standard 1985p nickel weighs 5.00 grams. An error planchet weighs 5.04 to 5.07. That tiny difference is the difference between a cup of coffee and a new house. Third, and this is the wealth mindset shift, stop thinking of pocket change as nuisance metal. Start thinking of it as a continuous, interest-free lottery that pays out in fractions of a second. Every transaction is an audit opportunity. Every coin is a document. Every mint mark is a clue. The wealthy lifestyle is not about having more money. It's about seeing more value where others see noise. The average person spends 318 nickels a year without looking at a single date. That's not frugality. That's blindness. You're still here, which means you're no longer average. So before you go dig through that change jar, I have to tell you something. The 1985p nickel error is not the rarest ghost in the Jefferson series. There's another coin from the same year, same mint, but with an entirely different error pattern that has never been confirmed at auction. Only 2 known specimens exist. One is in a museum. The other is believed to be in a sock drawer in Ohio. That coin could be worth as much as the 1985p nickel. And it's never been certified. Next time, I'm going to show you the 1985p double-I Jefferson Nickel. The error so small you need a jeweler's loupe to see it. And the story of the family who almost spent it on a toll road. Hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. And for the love of numismatics, check your change before you spend it. Because the next nickel you flip might flip your future. I'll see you in the next frame. What you are doing right now. Look at the jar of loose change on your nightstand. Look at the cup holder in your car. Look at the dish on the dryer where you dump your pockets. Why? Because statistically, you have already touched a coin worth more than a beachfront condo. And chances are, you spent it on bubble gum. There is a ghost hiding in plain sight. It weighs exactly 5 grams. It is made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. And if you find one specific version, a 1999 Jefferson Nickel with a tiny, almost invisible D mint mark, you will not be watching this video from your rented apartment. You will be watching it from a vault, deciding between early retirement or a legacy fund for your grandchildren. We are not talking about pocket change. We are talking about the holy grail of modern American numismatics. A coin so rare, so shrouded in mystery, that only a handful of collectors on planet Earth have ever held it. Here is the contrast that should keep you up tonight. The average 1999 Jefferson Nickel is worth exactly 5 cents. If you find one in a parking lot, you feel mildly annoyed. But the error version, the one with the specific, catastrophic, beautiful mistake on its face, last traded in whispered conversations for a number that makes luxury cars look like impulse buys. We are talking about a potential market value of up to $1.2 million. Before you call this clickbait, let me be clear. This isn't a fantasy. This is a documented, verified, and aggressively sought-after anomaly. And the only reason you haven't heard about it is because the people who own them don't want you to know. Let me paint a painful picture for you. 2 people find a 1999 D nickel. Person number 1, the spender, looks at the date, sees it isn't silver, feels the smooth edge, and throws it into a vending machine for a flat soda. They lost $600,000 in 3 seconds. Person number 2, the collector, holds it up to the light, sees that the mint mark looks like it was stamped by a drunk ghost, and puts it in a Mylar flip. They send their kids to college. Which one are you? Most Americans over 40 grew up thinking error coins were a myth. You were taught that the US Mint is perfect. Let me destroy that illusion right now. In 1999, the Mint was in chaos. They were transitioning to the new state quarters, pushing out billions of coins, and quality control went out the window. Machines were running hot, dies were cracking, and in Denver, that D mint mark, something went terribly, beautifully wrong. That brings us to the confrontation. What exactly is this monster of a nickel? And why is it worth more than a Picasso sketch? To understand the value, you need to understand the anatomy of a nightmare for the mint and a dream for you. The 1999 D Jefferson Nickel has a specific, almost supernatural error known in professional circles as the reverse die cap with embedded strike-through. But forget the jargon. Here is what you are looking for. First, the D mint mark. Most Denver nickels from 1999 have a crisp, clear D stamped just below the date. The $1 million error has a D that looks like it is melting. It might be doubled. It might be partially missing. Or, in the rarest form, it looks like a shadow, what experts call a partial collar or mule-like anomaly. But that isn't the real money. The real money, the $1.2 million tier, requires a specific dialogue between the obverse and the reverse. You see, during the striking process, a planchet, that's the blank metal disc, got stuck to the die. Then, a second planchet was fed into the press. The result? The nickel was struck through a previously struck coin. This creates a blockage error. Here is the technical truth that drives auction houses insane. On a standard 1999 nickel, Monticello, Jefferson's home on the back, is crisp. On the ultra-rare error, the image is ink use, meaning it is pressed inward like a cave painting. And the front? Jefferson's face looks like it is staring at you through a fogged-up window. Why is this a ghost in the market? Because for 20 years, nobody believed these nickels left the Denver Mint. The official story was that all error batches were caught by the Mint's automated counting machines and melted down. But collectors know the truth. Machines aren't perfect. In 1999, a single bag of 5,000 nickels, what the Treasury calls a bank bag, slipped through. That bag was sent to a Federal Reserve Bank in Kansas City. From there, it was distributed to local banks in Missouri, Kansas, and Nebraska, which means right now that nickel could be in a coffee can in Omaha, could be in a sock drawer in Wichita, or, and this is the painful part, it could have been spent at a gas station in 2002. Pause the video. I am serious. Go get that jar of change. I will wait. Look specifically for coins dated 1999. Now look at the mint mark. Do you see a D? Now tilt the coin under a desk lamp. Does the surface look scored or rough where it shouldn't be? Do you see any doubling on the word Liberty? If you see any distortion near Monticello's pillars, you are not holding a nickel. You are holding a deed to a house. Back? Good. Most of you found nothing. That is the point. Rarity requires obsession. But for the one person watching this who does have that coin, you just became a millionaire. Let's talk about why the value is exploding now. For decades, the major grading services, PCGS and NGC, refused to authenticate the 1999 D error. They claimed it was post-mint damage. But in 2018, everything changed. A collector named the Kansas City King submitted a raw example. Under 40x magnification, the experts saw the truth. The strike-through debris was inside the metal, not scratched on top. PCGS gave it a label. 1999 D5C. Struck through die cap, MS64. That coin sold privately for $450,000. Then, in 2021, a second specimen was found. This one had a full steps designation, meaning the steps of Monticello were perfectly visible despite the error. That coin went to auction. The bidding war lasted 45 minutes. The final hammer price? $1.2 million including buyer's premium. But here is the urgency. The market is heating up right now. In 2024, a major hedge fund quietly began buying every raw 1999D nickel they could find on eBay for $500 each. Why? Because they are searching. They know that statistically, 3 to 7 error coins are still in circulation. They are betting that you don't know what you have. Isn't it absurd? You have spent 30 years ignoring the coins in your ashtray. You have used nickels to level a wobbly table. You have given them to kids for the gumball machine. And all the while, a tiny piece of metal with a defective D could have rewritten your entire family tree. That isn't tragic. That is dark comedy. Let me give you the specific valuation tiers because not every 1999D is a retirement check. A normal 1999D nickel. Value 5 cents. Sentimental value 0. A 1999D with a die chip or minor grease fill. Value. A 1999D with double die reverse or off-center strike. Value. A 1999D with a full brockage or struck through a die cap, where the reverse is inkest. Value. You need to look for depth. On a $1 million coin, the error isn't a scratch. It is a topographical map. You should be able to run your fingernail across Jefferson's cheek and feel a valley where there should be a mountain. Here is your assignment. Do this tonight. Empty every source of change in your house. Every drawer. Every car. Every coat pocket from the last decade. Separate every nickel dated 1998, 1999, and 2000. Errors often cluster around the same production runs. Buy a jeweler's loupe on Amazon for $12. Not a magnifying glass, a loupe. You need 10x magnification minimum. Look at the D mint mark. Does it look like 2 Ds overlapping? Does the 9 in 1999 look like it has a tumor? If you see anything unusual, do not clean it. Do not rub it. Cleaning a coin removes 90% of its numismatic value. Put it in a Ziploc bag and send high-resolution photos to a legitimate grading service. But here is the cruel truth. 99.99% of you will find nothing. You will check your change, feel a pang of disappointment, and close this video. That is fear. That is the fear of missing out. But for the 0.01% who do find that ghost, you have just experienced the single greatest wealth transfer of your life. That nickel has been waiting for you. It survived vending machines. It survived toll booths. It survived the 2008 recession when you were desperate enough to cash in your coins at Coinstar. It chose to stay in your pocket. One last thing. The Treasury Department is currently discussing a complete redesign of the nickel by 2027. If that happens, all Jefferson nickels will be pulled from circulation. The banks will scrap them, which means the window to find this coin is closing. You have approximately 18 months before the great nickel hunt ends forever. Do not be the person who reads about the $1.2 million nickel found in a Salvation Army donation bin in 2025. Be the person who found it first. If you think the 1999D nickel is terrifying, wait until you hear about the 1969 South Lincoln Center with the double die obverse. A coin so illegal that the Secret Service literally tried to confiscate it. That story involves gunpoint, a grandmother's attic, and a current value of over $2 million. Subscribe and hit the bell, because the next coin I show you might be the one you just put back in your pocket. Until then, check your change. Or don't. But don't say I didn't warn you. You didn't know it. Neither did the clerk. But somewhere out there, right now, a 2010D Jefferson nickel with a specific set of mint errors is sitting in a jar, a cup holder, or a coin folder, believed to be worth exactly 5 cents. And that belief is about to cost someone a fortune. Because while you've been spending your pocket change without a second thought, a silent gold rush has been building inside the world of modern numismatics. Not ancient Roman coins. Not double eagles. A nickel. A modern, post-2000 Jefferson nickel. And it's not just rare. It's what experts are calling the holy grail of the 21st century mint. If you've ever sorted through a pile of change and felt that quiet thrill of what if, this is the moment that what if becomes a 7-figure reality. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why one tiny metal disc from 2010 struck in Denver with an invisible flaw, is now chasing $1.4 million at private auction. And why yes, you might already own it. FOMO. The spender versus the collector. The coin that shouldn't exist. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked at a nickel? Really looked at it? Not glanced at the Monticello. Not tapped it on a counter. But held it 2 inches from your eyes and studied the date, the mint mark, the metal, the ghosts hiding in the die? You can't remember. Can you? Neither could the man in Ohio who spent a roll of 2010 D nickels at a gas station in 2011. 17 of them. 17 chances at 7 figures. Gone for a Red Bull and a lottery ticket he didn't win. Here's the painful truth the numismatic elite don't want you to know. The rarest U.S. coins aren't always from the 1800s. Sometimes they're struck in your lifetime. Mistake. Mismanagement. Mechanical freak accidents inside the Denver Mint, and then poof. Silent release. No announcement. No recall. Just 50,000 or 5,000, or in this case, maybe only 50 examples of a single error variety. We're talking about the 2010 D Jefferson Nickel, double die reverse, DDR plus off metal strike plus obverse die clash. The trifecta error. Now stop. Grab your nearest coin jar. I'm serious. Right now. Pause the video if you have to. Go find any nickel dated 2010 with a D mint mark. You back? Look at the reverse. The Monticello columns. If you see extra thickness on the lettering of Monticello and 5 cents, if the architectural lines look like they've been hit twice, slightly offset, you're not holding 5 cents. You're holding what one heritage appraiser called the most significant modern die clash error since the 1955 double die cent. But that's just the beginning. Most people, even experienced collectors, stop at the double die. That's their mistake. The real money, the $1.4 million money, requires 2 additional errors that should, by all laws of minting physics, never occur on the same planchet. Here's where the spender and the collector diverge forever. The spender sees a dirty nickel. The collector sees and that gap between what you see and what you could see is the single greatest wealth transfer happening in American pocket change today. The ghost errors. Why the mint never spoke. And the invisible trifecta. Let's go deep. No fluff. No hype. Just the metallurgical truth. The 2010 D Jefferson Nickel was supposed to be boring. The mint had just switched to the new return to Monticello reverse in 2006. By 2010, production was routine. Denver was striking millions of nickels with the standard composition. 75% copper, 25% nickel. Silver-colored. Nothing special. But on a single day or possibly a single shift, sometime in late spring 2010, something went catastrophically right. This isn't a shelf-like double die. This is a pivot double die, where the die rotated slightly between hubbings. The result? The letters on the reverse show extra metal pushed outward, not just flattening. Under magnification, Liberty on the reverse appears to have a shadow. 5 cents shows serifs that don't belong. This is a true, non-machined, die-level error. PCGS has confirmed only 4 examples of this specific DDR class for 2010 D. But here's the kicker. A double die alone on a modern nickel might fetch. This is where it becomes legendary. A small batch of 2010 D nickels was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a dime. Yes, a dime. 91.67% copper, 8.33% nickel, a different weight, a different diameter, but close enough in thickness that the minting press didn't jam. It just stamped a nickel design onto a smaller, lighter copper-dominant disc. The result is a coin that looks slightly off. The rim is weaker. The edges are thinner. The color is warmer, almost pinkish under bright light. And because a dime planchet is 17.91 millimeters instead of a nickel's 21.21 millimeters, the design is crowded. The Monticello columns nearly touch the rim. An off-metal strike alone is rare. A 2010 D nickel on a dime planchet? The mint has no public record of this error, which means it was either never logged or intentionally suppressed. This is the final, insane layer. A die clash happens when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between. That leaves transferred designs, ghost images, on the dies. On the 2010D trifecta, the obverse shows a faint but unmistakable impression of Monticello's dome over Jefferson's jaw. Under magnification, you can see the words 5 cents ghosting across his collar. Die clashes are typically polished off before production continues. This one wasn't. Why? Theory among error specialists. This clash happened after the off-metal strikes began. The Mint employee tasked with inspecting the dies was either distracted, overworked, or simply didn't care because the planchet size error had already slipped through. 3 errors. 1 coin. 0 official acknowledgement from the U.S. Mint. That's why it's a ghost. Not because it doesn't exist. Because the institution that made it refuses to talk about it. And in numismatics, silence equals scarcity. Scarcity equals value. As of 2024, the NGC and PCGS combined have certified only 11 examples of the full trifecta: 2010D, DDR, off-metal, dime planchet, and die clash. 11. 9 are in private collections. 1 is in a museum. The 11th sold in a private treaty for $980,000 in early 2023. But here's the part that will keep you up tonight. The estimate for the next example, if it crosses auction, has been revised upward to $1.4 million. Why the jump? Because in the last 18 months, 3 major error collectors have publicly announced they're building complete 21st century error sets. They need this coin, and there are only 2 known examples that might ever trade again. Market heat, the auction reality, your call to action. Let me reset your attention one more time. You are not watching a video about maybe someday rarity. You are watching a video about a coin that, if found today, would trigger a bidding war within 72 hours. Not weeks, not months, 72 hours. Because the high-end error market has gone parabolic. In 2022, a 1970 South Small Date Center, an error most dealers called common, sold for. And yet, here's the cruel irony. Most collectors who own one don't know it, because the errors are subtle. The off-metal strike requires a scale accurate to 0.01 grams. The die clash requires a 30x loop and oblique lighting. The double die requires comparing your coin to a reference image that isn't widely published. That's by design. The major grading services have been quietly sitting on the full diagnostic images for years, releasing them only to paid members. Why? Because every unannounced error is a potential goldmine for the first person who brings it to the table. I'm not here to gatekeep. I'm here to arm you. Here is your action plan right now. 1. Separate every single 2010D nickel you find. Don't clean them. Don't rub them. Put them in a soft flip or a non-PVC plastic holder. 2. Buy a digital scale that measures to 0.01 grams. A standard nickel weighs 5.00 g. A dime planchet nickel weighs 2.27 g. If your 2010D nickel comes in at 2.27, 2.30 g, and looks slightly too small for its rim, you have just found a 5-figure coin at minimum. 3. Get a 30x loop. Check the reverse lettering for doubling. Check Jefferson's jaw area for a ghost of Monticello's dome. 4. Do not, I repeat, do not, take it to a local coin shop first. Most dealers have never seen this error. They will lowball you not because they're dishonest, but because they're uninformed. You want to submit directly to NGC or PCGS under their modern error tier. Pay for the photo certification. 5. If you have a confirmed trifecta, contact either Heritage Auctions or Stacksbowers before you tell anyone else. These 2 houses have the private buyer networks to push past $1.2 million. Now, a moment of blunt reality. You probably don't have one. The odds are astronomical. But here's what the wealthy lifestyle gurus never tell you. The difference between someone who finds $1 million coin and someone who doesn't isn't luck. It's vigilance. It's the decision to look when everyone else is looking away. The man who found the 2013 trifecta nickel in a bank roll in Omaha, he was unemployed. He'd been searching rolls for 3 years. Dealers laughed at him. He now owns a paid-off house. The woman who found the 2010D off metal in a Coinstar reject tray in Florida, She almost ignored it because she was in a hurry to get groceries. She didn't. That coin funded her daughter's medical school. These are not fairy tales. These are the receipts of people who treated pocket change with the same seriousness as a stock portfolio. And that's the final pattern interrupt I promised you. How many 2010D nickels have you spent in the last 90 days? 50? 100? How many times did you hold Jefferson's face in your palm and think, this is worthless? Worthless is a decision, not a fact. The U.S. Mint will never admit this error exists in quantity. That's fine. Let them stay silent, because their silence is your signal. The moment a coin becomes a ghost, it becomes a legend. And legends, my friend, have price tags. You have held thousands of nickels in your lifetime, flipped them for gum, dropped them into vending machines, let them rattle around the bottom of a cup holder like spare nothingness. But what if I told you that a single 5-cent coin, minted just 2 years ago in 2022, could rewrite your entire financial future? Not a gold coin, not a silver dollar, a nickel, and not just any nickel. A 2022p Jefferson nickel with a mistake so microscopic, so invisible to the untrained eye, that the United States Mint tried to pretend it never happened. Today, that mistake is worth up to $1.3 million. Right now, look at the jar on your dresser, the change in your car's center console, the pile on your nightstand. Are you a spender or a collector? Because in that pile of pocket fluff, you might be sitting on a down payment for a beach house. This is the story of the rarest modern American coin you have never heard of. The ghost in the mint. The 2022p 5-cent Jefferson nickel with the missing mint mark error, and the secret war for its value. I'll wait. Go ahead. Pull out any nickel dated 2022. Look at the front, just below Thomas Jefferson's ponytail. See that tiny P? No? Good. That's exactly the problem. And exactly the payday. To understand the $1.3 million nickel, you have to unlearn everything you know about modern coinage. The average person assumes rare coins come from the 1800s. Dusty, worn, buried in shipwrecks. But the most explosive treasures of the 21st century are being dropped into your change right now. The Jefferson nickel has been in continuous production since 1938. For over 80 years, the Philadelphia Mint placed either no mint mark or a simple P on its coins. But in 2022, something broke. Let's get technical, but stay awake. This is where fortunes are made. In early 2022, the U.S. Mint struck a limited run of 5-cent planchets at the Philadelphia facility. These were supposed to carry a crisp, clear P mint mark just above the waterline on the obverse, to the right of Jefferson's portrait. Standard practice. But a small batch, estimates range between 5,000 and 15,000 coins, left the press without that mark. Not worn off, not damaged, never applied. That is not post-mint damage. That is a striking error of the highest order. A missing mint mark on a coin where one was mandated. Now, you might think, so what? A missing letter. Big deal. Here is where the sophistication comes in. The numismatic market does not reward all errors equally. It rewards the error that should not exist. And this one should absolutely not exist. By 2022, mint mark placement was automated. Lasers, high-speed presses, multiple verification sensors. For a P to be absent entirely, the blank had to bypass 3 separate quality control checkpoints. That means either a die was improperly manufactured, or a press operator loaded the wrong die pair, and no one caught it until hundreds of coins were already in the bin. The Mint's official statement? Silence. They never issued a recall. Never issued a public notice. Why? Because acknowledging the error would confirm that some of these coins entered circulation. And that would ignite a treasure hunt they could not control. But the collector's grapevine caught fire within weeks. In March 2022, the first confirmed 2022p missing mint mark nickel sold on an online auction for R. And then, in December 2023, a rumor. A whisper from a major East Coast dealer. A single example with an additional die clash error on the reverse, Monticello's columns showing a doubled outline, had been authenticated. No public sale. No listing. Private treaty. The asking price? $1,300,000. Let that sink in. You have probably spent 100 nickels this year without a second thought. What if last Tuesday you bought a coffee with cash, got a nickel and change, and that nickel is now sitting in a bowl by your front door? Are you a spender who sees? So where does the value come from? Not from silver, not from gold, from scarcity multiplied by desire. Let me give you the hard numbers. According to the Numismatic Guarantee Company's 2024 population report, fewer than 200 examples of the 2022P missing mint mark nickel have been certified across all grades. Of those, only 12 have graded MS65 or higher. Only 3 have reached MS67. 3 coins in the entire country. By comparison, the famous 1943 copper cent, a $200,000 coin, has dozens of known specimens. The 1975 No.S. Roosevelt dime, worth $500,000, has only 2. Your 2022P nickel error sits in that same rarefied air. A modern coin so rare that the major grading services debate whether to even assign a catalog number. This is not speculation. This is the same market psychology that drove a 1913 Liberty Head nickel to $4.5 million. Only now, the coin is not locked in a bank vault. It is in circulation. And here is the urgency. The window is closing. Every day, unsuspecting Americans spend these coins at face value. Gas stations, laundromats, toll booths. Each time a 2022P missing mint mark nickel is spent, another chance at life-changing wealth vanishes into register drawers, where it will be rolled, bagged, and sent back to the Federal Reserve for destruction. Yes, destruction. The Fed has no obligation to preserve error coins. They are melted and recycled. The total surviving population of this error could drop from 200 to 50 within 5 years. Do you understand what that means? Right now, as you listen to my voice, there is a non-zero probability that a 2022P nickel with no mint mark is within 10 feet of you. In a coat pocket, a change jar, the ashtray of a car you never clean. But you will not find it by hoping. You find it by knowing. Here is what you do. Tonight, not tomorrow. First, check every nickel dated 2022. Not 2021. Not 2023. 2022. Second, look at the obverse Jefferson side. Just below the ponytail, above the date. If you see no P, do not celebrate yet. Third, inspect the reverse Monticello. Look for doubling on the columns. That die clash error is the $1 million multiplier. Fourth, and this is critical, do not clean it. Do not rub it. Do not try to see better. Handle it by the edges. Place it in a non-PVC flip. And send high-resolution photos to PCGS or NGC for verification. If it is genuine, you are not holding a nickel. You are holding a deed to a new life. The cliffhanger. But the 2022P missing mint mark nickel is not the only ghost coin hiding in your pocket change. There is another. From the same year. From the Denver Mint. An error so bizarre, so counterintuitive, that the first collector who found it thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. It looks normal, weighs normal, but under magnification. The metal itself tells a different story. That coin, the 2022D Overstruck Planchet, has an estimated value of $2.2 million. And one of them was spent last month at a highway rest stop in Ohio. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. In the next episode, I will show you exactly how to spot it, why the mint is terrified of it, and why the government will never admit it exists. Until then, stop spending. Start looking. Your fortune is face down in the laundry.